And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we are building Janky Commander decks today, and I am once again dipping into the well of my 10 deck ideas videos. This is coming from my last one that I did, and it is the partner without idea. So the idea being is you take a partner commander, specifically that partners with another commander, right? The partner with mechanic specifically I'm talking about here, and you only use the one. And I really like this idea. I've toyed with it a lot recently, so have a lot of my patrons. I really like that you can just focus on the one commander. A lot of those partner with commanders actually have really good abilities that are easy to build around, and I think if you just focus on the one, you can be a lot more effective. I have a patron who has a Camber deck without the partner, just a mono black Camber deck. It's a really great deck. He does well with it. I myself have recently built a Browlin deck, just a mono red Browlin deck, no shark riding at all, and it's just a straight up mono red discard deck. It works really, really well. I like it a lot. I like this partner without idea so much. In fact, I have 2 decks for you guys today. That's right. You're getting a 2 for 1 because like I said, I've toyed with this idea a lot and I've ended up building a few different partner without commanders. So there's 2 here that I'm going to include in this video today. The first one is Nikara, Lair Scavenger. And typically Nikara partners with Yannick, Scavenging Sentinel. And interestingly enough, I actually built this deck when Ikoria first came out. I built a Nikara and Yannick deck, and I just didn't love it. I felt like there was just too much stuff going on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I find if you just focus on the one, and I think Yannick would be a really interesting deck just to build around Yannick and nothing else. Nikara, the same thing. So that's the deck I have here, a Nikara Lair Scavenger, mono black deck, 2 and a black human cleric, 2/2 with menace. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. That is a very build-aroundable ability, I think. It's very easy to be putting counters on your creatures, and of course, drawing cards is always great. So I got one of my personal favorites in here, Entrails Feaster, just a 1 mana zombie cat, 1/1 at the beginning of your upkeep. You may exile a creature card from a graveyard. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Entrails Feaster. If you don't, tap it. So this is a creature that you can play turn 1. It is very easily going to be putting counters on itself, and also it's graveyard hate. That's what I really like about it. Blood Tracker is another fantastic creature that you're just going to be putting counters on it anyway. You're going to be drawing cards when it leaves the battlefield and also drawing a card off of your commander as well. I got Crystalline Giant and Miri the Curse, just great creatures that are going to be putting counters on themselves all the time. Necroplasm, Puppeteer Click, again, these are just great creatures that you could put in any commander deck, but because they're dealing with counters, they're going to draw us a card when they leave the battlefield. I have Isareth the Awakener in here. I just think this is a perfect fit in this deck. 1 black human wizard, 3/3 with Death Touch. Whenever Isareth the Awakener attacks, you may pay X. When you do, return target creature card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield with a corpse counter on it. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. So this is getting creatures out of our graveyard. That's fantastic. The added bonus here is they have a corpse counter on them, and our commander is a leaves the battlefield trigger, not a dies trigger. That is important. So any creatures we reanimate, they have that corpse counter on them, and when they leave the battlefield, we'll get to draw a card. Call of the Death Dweller is a great recursion card here as well. 2 and a black sorcery. Return up to 2 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a Death Touch counter on either of them, or put a menace counter on either of them. So again, we're putting counters on our creatures, so when they die, we will draw cards. I put Grave Betrayal in this deck, 5 black enchantment. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, return to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. This is just a great card in a commander game. Again, this is a card I used to see all the time. Don't see it much anymore. We're going to be stealing our opponent's creatures when they die, which is great, but they enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on them on our side. So when they leave the battlefield again, we'll get to draw a card. Cauldron of Souls also is great here because now we're just giving persist to all our creatures when someone casts a board wipe, but then when they die, even if that creature is a 1/1 creature and we're going to put a persist counter on it, it's going to enter the battlefield again and then immediately die. But because it had a counter on it, it's leaving the battlefield with a counter on it, we get to draw a card. So this is a great fit in the deck. We're doing the counter theme. So Power Conduit and Feign the Broker are going to be great here because they can remove counters to give us benefits, right? Power Conduit, you can tap it to remove a counter from a permanent you control, to put a charge counter an artifact or a +1/+1 counter on a creature. So we can remove any of the counters that we are now placing on stuff to put counters on other stuff, right? So we can manipulate where those counters are at. Fane the Broker works in a similar way. We can use this guy to sacrifice a creature if we want to put counters on something. So now we can have a creature leave the battlefield with the sacrifice so that we can draw, put counters on something else so that when it dies, we can draw. We can remove a counter from a creature we control to create a treasure token. So that works here as well. And of course, we can also sacrifice an artifact to create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. So a lot of stuff on this guy is going to be working this deck. We have to proliferate as well. I got Karn's Bastion here. I got Contagion Engine. Proliferating is going to be great because we are dealing with a lot of counters. I have Throne of Geth as well, which is interesting. 2 mana artifact, tap, sacrifice an artifact to proliferate. And it just sort of happened organically that this became a little bit of a sacrifice artifact theme, which is really, really interesting. I do have a lot of artifacts in this deck. I also have Xenic Poltergeist, which I thought would be an interesting include. 1 black, spirit 1/1, tap until your next upkeep. Target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its mana value. This is a great way to remove your opponent's artifacts in mono black, right? Because someone's about to cast a board wipe, maybe yourself, you turn one of their non-creature artifacts into an artifact and then it dies to the board wipe. Also works here because we have some sacrifice theme. What we can do is if we have an artifact with counters on it, and there are a few here, we can then turn that artifact into a artifact creature so that when it dies, we get to draw a card. So that's an interesting fit. I got Culling Dais as well. Of course, is going to be a great fit here. We do need sack outlets, I think, in this deck. And also because this is putting charge counters on itself, the Proliferate works here as well. I got Conjurer's Closet and Erratic Portal because, again, this is a leaves the battlefield trigger for our commander. So we can bounce our creatures with Erratic Portal and draw a card if we want to, or Conjurer's Closet being the best way where any creature that maybe enters the battlefield with a counter on it, this is just going to be a card draw on our end step every turn. If we're going to be using removal, it's got to be the removal that fits, right? So Black Sun Zenith and Harbinger of Night are going to be great fits here. They're going to be killing all the creatures, but because they're putting the -1/-1 counters on our creatures, right? Our creatures will die as well, but when they do, we'll get to draw a bunch of cards. So I think those are going to be great fits for removal in this deck. And of course, Tetzimoc Primal Death is an absolute perfect fit here because we can pay 1 black and reveal it from our hand to put a prey counter on target creature. Now, of course, we can put those prey counters on our creatures. If we got some extra mana up, we can just pay 1 black, put a prey counter on our creature so that when that creature leaves the battlefield, we get to draw a card, right? Also, though, of course, when Tetzimoc enters the battlefield, destroy each creature your opponents control with a prey counter on it. So this guy's only going to kill our opponent's creatures with prey counters on it. We can put a bunch of prey counters on our creatures and our opponent's creatures. When he hits the battlefield, he's going to just kill our opponent's creatures and ours are still going to stick around. So I think he's a fantastic fit. So there it is, Nikara, Lair Scavenger, sort of a mono black counters theme. I think it's a pretty interesting deck. But moving on to my second deck for this video, and it is an Ukkima Stalking Shadow partner without, right? So this is a Dimir deck. It's just Ukkima, no partner at all. Of course, 1 blue and a black Whale Wolf 2/2, and Ukkima can't be blocked. That's a very usable ability for sure on a commander. When Ukkima leaves the battlefield, it deals X damage to target player, and you gain X left where X is its power. And this one in particular, I just thought there's so much going on this card that you don't need the Khazar Ruthless Stalker at all here. You really don't, because there's so much here that you can build around. I like that it's unblockable. Obviously, there's a lot you can use there. It is a leaves the battlefield trigger again, so that's interesting. You're dealing damage to a player, also gaining life, which is really important, and I will get into that as well. So when I first saw Ukkima, I just thought there is a perfect commander for ninjutsu, I thought, because it is a leaves the battlefield trigger and also your commander can't be blocked. So now I can attack with my Ukkima. I know it's not going to be blocked, so I can ninjutsu in, say, that Fallen Shinobi. It's going to go in, it's going to connect. My Ukkima is leaving the battlefield because I'm returning it to my hand, so I get the Ukkima trigger as well. So I really like ninjutsu with Ukkima, and that's what I did here a little bit, is a little bit of ninja tribal. I also got Grazilex in this deck because I think Grazilex is a great fit with Ukkima and also with ninjas, right? Because whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you can return it to owner's hand. That's a fantastic fit with ninjutsu. ninjutsu. I actually did a mono blue Grazalak ninjutsu deck on my channel as well. Also though, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So with our commander, we can just easily get in for damage and draw a card. With a lot of our ninjas as well. Cunning Evasion, of course, works great in any ninjutsu theme because whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you can return it to your hand. I also got Vela the Nightclad in here. This actually, for those who haven't been playing Commander for long, used to be the go-to ninja commander because it was blue-black and because both of her abilities worked really great with ninjutsu, right? 4 blue-black human wizard, 4/4 with Intimidate. Other creatures you control have Intimidate, right? So that gives your creatures evasion. It makes them harder to block, which works great with ninjutsu. Also, when Vela the Nightclad or another creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Again, that works great with ninjutsu, works great with our commander as well because it is the leaves the battlefield trigger. So she's a fantastic fit here. I also got Dire Undercurrents, 3 and 2 hybrid Dimir mana enchantment. Whenever a blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have a player draw a card. Whenever a black creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have a player discard a card. Just a fantastic card, I think, in almost any Dimir commander deck, but particularly here because we are going to have a lot of creatures entering the battlefield and leaving and all that good stuff. Of course, you got to have creatures like Baleful Strix and Brazen Borrower because they just work great with the ninjutsu mechanic, right? We play our Baleful Strix, we get to draw a card, then we attack with it, we return it to our hand, play our ninjutsu creature, then we can play the Baleful Strix again and draw a card. Brazen Borrower, again, works great the same way. Any adventure card, I think, works great with ninjutsu because we can play the adventure side, return target non-land permanent to owner's hand. Then we flash in the Brazen Borrower, which is a 3/1 flyer. We attack with it, ninjutsu, return it to our hand so that we can again play the adventure side. We can play either side if we want to. So I think adventure works great with ninjutsu as well. I also have other ways to return our creatures to our hand, whether it be our commander or any of our ninjutsus. I got Equilibrium and Portal of Sanctuary. Great cards for returning your own creatures to your hand. I also have Sunken Hope, 3 blue enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player returns a creature they control to owner's hand. So this is going to likely hurt our opponents. It's going to set them back a little bit. For us, it's going to be a benefit. At the very least, we can just return our commander to our hand and have someone lose 2 life and we gain 2 life. Dragon Mask is a great fit in an Ukkima deck, I think. 3 mana artifact. Pay 3 and tap. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Return it to owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Pretty fantastic, I think. Again, works with the ninjas as well because we can use it to return to our hand. But I think it works great with Ukkima. Yeah, it's a little mana intensive because you got to pay the 3, but we're going to give our commander +2/+2. It's now a 4/4. We can get in for 4 damage because our commander's unblockable. Then we'll return it to our hand at the beginning of the next end step and target player will lose 4 life and we'll gain 4 life. So now we're doing 8 damage to one of our opponents and we're gaining 4 life. I think that's worth it. Hatred, of course, is just an auto included in the Ukkima deck because you can just straight up kill an opponent with it by paying 19 life, I guess, right? Because it's going to get +X/+0 until end of turn. And then if we can use one of our bounce effects to get it off the table, it's now going to do 21 damage to another opponent. It's not going to be commander damage, but it is going to be a lot of damage. Don't forget, we are also gaining life in this deck. So I have Witch of the Moors and Tavash Gloom Summoner. I think they're great fits here because we are likely going to be gaining life on our turn. Maybe not every turn, but every other turn for sure, I would say. I particularly like Tavash Gloom Summoner here because at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you may pay X life, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So let's just say we gain 2 life with our commander. Now we're going to pay X, which is 2, and create a 2/2 black demon creature token with flying. And that's particularly good because you now have an evasion creature, right? Now we can swing in with that 2/2 flyer, use it to ninjutsu in some of our ninjas if we want to. So that is Ukkima, Stalking Shadow, partner without deck, and that is another really interesting build here. Again, I thought the ninja theme fit really good with Ukkima when I first saw it for a number of reasons. And then I'm doing a bunch of other stuff in here as well that I think fits. The deck list, again, for this is also in the description below. Check out this one or check out the Nikara deck. Like I said, you're getting a 2-for-1 this week, so check out whichever one you like or both if you want to. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.